Speaking of Flint, Michigan, it looks like Governor Rick Snyder, Republican Governor Rick Snyder, he who does not believe in democracy, when the Republican legislature in Michigan, in Lansing, passed a law giving the governor the power to topple elected leaders and replace them with hand-picked cronies who would have all the power of elected leaders. The people of the state of Michigan got together, did a ballot initiative, and undid that law by ballot initiative. So Rick Snyder and his Republican cronies in the Republican House and Senate in Michigan, in Lansing, passed a new law, and included in that law not only was his ability to continue appointing emergency managers, little dictators, but also it said that this law cannot be repealed by referendum. Seriously, not making this up. And so he got his emergency managers in. And now it looks like the reason why Flint was put on Flint River water instead of Detroit water, you know, the excuse that is being used by Rick Snyder and other scumbags in the Republican Party in Michigan is that, oh, we were just trying to save $2 million, maybe as much as $8 million. You're trying to save money for Flint. It turns out, as these emails are being released, that the Detroit water system proposed an $800 million savings to the city of Flint, 20% over moving to Flint water. In other words, it would have cost less for them to stay with Detroit water. So clearly, Republican Governor Rick Snyder is a lying scumbag. But beyond that, what is he lying about and why? Well, it looks increasingly like what he's lying about is that they were planning on taking the Detroit water system, breaking it into two pieces and privatizing them, selling it off to some of his billionaire buddies, which is what he's already done with a lot of the other assets of Detroit, including Belle Isle. So that some libertarians can create a little libertarian paradise there or something. And now on top of that, the Washington Post, Mark Guarino reporting, if lead-laced water supply wasn't enough to deal with, many residents of Flint, Michigan face a new crisis, replacing the water heaters, pipes, and even the service lines to their homes that may have been damaged by the city's water. And for now, it's unclear whether they will receive any help in covering those costs. Now, this is one of the poorest cities of its size in the entire nation. Flint used to be the manufacturing epicenter for General Motors, right? The biggest GM factories, the first big, organized labor automotive thing in the United States, the great Flint sit-down strike of, as I recall, 35. It was back in the 1930s, and it echoed on from there, and Flint was just rolling along, and a middle class, both a white and a black middle class, were emerging in Flint. People were moving from all over the country to Flint because that's where the jobs were. And then, of course, we got Reagan. And we got Clinton. And we got permanent normal trade relations with China. And we got NAFTA and CAFTA and the WTO. And what happened to Flint is the same thing that happened to Detroit. It's the same thing that happened to Baltimore. It's the same thing that happened to city after city in America, happened to small towns all across the South and up and down the East Coast. What happened is all those jobs went to Asia. As Bernie Sanders has pointed out a million times, just since George Bush became president, just in the last 16 years, we've lost over 60,000 factories. Just in the 8 years of George Bush's presidency, we lost over 40,000 factories. Factories, not jobs, factories to China. And that doesn't count the tens of thousands of factories that we lost from the mid-'80s when Reagan started this madness until 2000, because nobody was keeping track of it back then. It wasn't until after NAFTA and CAFTA and SHAFTA and everything else that people figured out, hey, we're getting badly screwed. So it's pretty amazing. And now, by the way, Johnson Controls just merged with, what's the company they merged with? It was Tyco, just merged with Tyco and moved their headquarters over to Ireland. Now, if Johnson Controls sounds familiar, it's because their principal customers were GM and Chrysler. They make car parts. They're going to continue to make car parts. It's just that they're going to put their corporate headquarters in Ireland so that they don't pay American taxes. I realize this is illegal in most countries. But see, here in the United States, our laws are written by lawyers who work for billionaires and for big corporations. And they hand those laws to mostly Republican, but occasionally Democratic members of Congress as well, and say, here, pass this law for me. And here's a campaign contribution. And so this is legal in the United States. It's illegal in most other countries, but it's legal here in the United States. And by the way, Congress approved a bailout plan, as Andrew Ross Sorkin is writing in the New York Times today. Congress approved a bailout plan worth almost $80 billion for General Motors and Chrysler, saving the automakers and indirectly suppliers like Johnson Controls. By 2010, with its business back on track, see, we bailed them out, you and me, with our tax dollars. Routed $80 billion into that industry through GM and Chrysler, and much of it went back to Johnson Controls. And by 2010, with its business back on track, writes Andrew Ross Sorkin, Johnson Controls doubled the pay of Stephen Rowell, then its chief executive, to more than $15 million. With your money. Despite the federal government's rescue and hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks, Sorkin writes, over the last few decades from states like Michigan and Wisconsin. Yes, Michigan and Wisconsin taxpayers have been giving hundreds of millions of dollars to Johnson Controls. Johnson Controls said on Monday it was renouncing its United States corporate citizenship by selling itself to Tyco International, which has already based itself in Ireland. It's all about the oligarchy. Right? The governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, is willing to poison thousands of children, tens or 100,000 Flint residents, in order to be able to break up the publicly owned water companies so they can be privatized so his billionaire buddies can get richer. And Johnson Controls is willing to move their corporate headquarters to Ireland after we bailed them out and kept them alive. It's a giant screw you to America from Johnson Controls. And, of course, this is all made possible by legislation promoted by Republicans. When the hell is this going to end? When are we going to say America for America?
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.